Good morning. Good morning. Today is October the 25th, 2025. I hope everyone had a great week and I hope your weekend goes well also. I want to talk to you guys about what's going on in the political sphere right now. Just reason being, this country has a president and his staff that truly doesn't have the best interest of the citizens of this country in mind or at heart. And there's a few reasons why I say that or say this. One is, and which is one of the major issues right now, which is this government shutdown. And so what we're seeing is the two political parties fighting back and forth and at a standstill, and they say that it's because of the Medicaid or Medicare issue, in which, in all honesty, that should not be an issue whatsoever. And I say that because majority of the people in this country truly do not make enough money in order to pay for health care and to pay for all of the other needs and necessities that we have in life. And so things like Medicaid and Medicare is extremely helpful for people who actually get up every morning or every evening or whenever you go to work, but they get up and they go to work full-time jobs, 40 plus hours a week, and still do not make enough money in order to make ends meet. But what we hear and what we're seeing is from the Republican side, and you also have some Democrats that believe this also, but they think that everyone that's on Medicaid or Medicare, whichever one or both of them, that these are people who just sit at home all day long and play video games or sleep in their beds all day, and they're just mooching off of the hardworking people in this country, which is not factual. Because we all know that Medicare is something that's for the older generation, and that majority of retirees have to depend on Medicare in some form or fashion. And these are people that worked 30, 40, 50, some even 60 years or more of their lives in order to be able to finally not have to get up and go punch someone's time clock. And because they're not making enough in Social Security, and whether they have a pension or whatever it may be, they're not making enough money, so they have to depend on some type of assistance when it comes down to their health care. And you have these politicians that are painting a picture that this is a bad thing. Well, what else are we going to do? What else can the people do in order to be able to have help so that they can use their money to put food on the table or to continue paying bills like they need to? But once again, these fake narratives that these people paint, and because a lot of people are so hung up on that ideology that if you have to have government assistance, that means that you don't work for a living. And it's lies upon lies. And also, there's a possibility that the supplemental food stamps is what we grew up calling it. But basically, they're saying that the food stamps are SNAP, the supplemental nutritional program or whatever have you, is possibly going to be stopped on November 1st or whatever have you, if they don't work some type of deal out. And it's just sad that they're willing to hurt the people of this country and put the people in dire situations because of their beliefs. I'm going to use myself as an example. I work and I make over 40 hours a week every week. But with that being said, me making over 40 hours a week, I get paid a little over $20 an hour. I still do not make enough money to take care of me, my wife, and my 2 children. And so I actually qualify for food stamps. I have chosen not to apply for food stamps and use that assistance, even though I truly do need that assistance, and I've been on food stamps before in my life. But I say all that because I qualify for food stamps. My household qualifies for food stamps, and I get up and I go to work. And majority of the people that use food stamps, even when I did have food stamps, I still got up and I went to work. I was working. I wasn't sitting back and collecting food stamps and not having some other form of income. And so I was still a value or an asset to society. And we also have to look at the fact that majority of the jobs out here do not pay enough money. And I'm not blaming anyone for this fact. You know, what we have to face is that inflation is a reality. And not only that, on top of inflation, we have a lot of bad decisions being made that's affecting the way that people are able to survive in this country. And then on top of that, you have the tariffs and all this other nonsense that is truly affecting the prices of things, no matter how much they want to say that it isn't. Reality is that it is affecting everything in this country. The price of new cars have hit all-time highs, over $50,000 for a brand new car. That's downright ridiculous. And we're not talking about some fancy car. And $50,000. But I say that the president of this country and his party doesn't care about the people of the United States. It's because of the decisions that they're making. They know that they could agree with the Democrats, but because they want to stand firm in their beliefs and don't want to look like they folded to the opposite party, and vice versa for the Democrats, but you cannot completely blame the Democrats for what's going on. I don't support either one of these parties, but we have to look at truth. Truth is truth, regardless of what side of the field you're playing on. And the truth is that the Democrats are doing this because the Medicaid and the Medicare needs to be funded. Because if it's not funded, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to lose their health care. So we not only have people that could possibly lose their health care, but also lose their food stamps. So now they can't go to the doctor, nor can they buy food to feed themselves and to feed their family. But once again, you have people that's in leadership that have been rich their entire life. The president, for example, has been rich his entire life. This guy does not know what it means to have to borrow milk or borrow sugar from a neighbor, or for a neighbor to have to borrow $10, $15, $20 from you until they get paid again so that they can purchase food or so that they can put that money towards a bill in their house. He doesn't know what it takes to have to survive in this country. Yeah, he'll use the excuse of the empire that he so-called built as survival, but that's not survival. Survival is having nothing and having to depend on someone else in order to be able to make it. And he knows nothing about that. So his whole viewpoint is going to be coming from a perspective of someone with a gold spoon in their mouth. Not from a perspective of someone that had to live off of Section 8. Or grow up in the projects or grow up in the hood. He knows nothing about this. And so they look at people like that as if we are the problem in this country. And it's ridiculous, y'all. And so his focus is on having meetings with the Chinese president or calling off meetings that he had scheduled with Putin. That's where his focus is at. He's not focusing on what he should be focusing on, and that is the country that he is the so-called leader of. That's where his focus should be right now. He is worrying about the war between Russia and Ukraine and not thinking about the problems that he's causing or that are being caused in the country that he is running. He is more concerned about building a $300 million ballroom that is made of gold and not focusing on how can I fix this shutdown so that these government workers can go back to work comfortably, knowing that they'll receive a paycheck when it's time for them to be paid. Because this past Friday, majority, if not any, of the government workers received a paycheck. But yet they are still being loyal and going to work so that the people in this country can continue to move and live normally. Because if these government workers decided, you know what, let's just go on strike. If they're not going to pay us, we're not going to go to work. It would shut this country down if they decided to do that. And to be honest with you, I believe that's what the Republicans truly want, no matter what they say. Because they're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to fill your head up with lies like they've done from the beginning. Once again, it's not just Republicans that lie. The Democrats lie as well. But right now, this is a Republican issue because they hold the Senate and they're the ones that's running this country right now. And it's a problem, y'all. And all it takes is them compromising with one another. But because of egos, they refuse to compromise with one another, y'all. Do we not see how petty, how childish they're acting? I mean, literally, you would think that these are kindergartners that are running the government, that are in control of the government. literally, they look like elementary school students. The way that they handle things and the way that they talk to one another, it's so childish. This so-called president, he acts like an adolescent. He talks like a teenager. He's quick to insult people, in opposed to lifting people up, being a real leader. This is not a leader. But once again, the adults in this society seem to have such a childish mentality that they applaud this and they root him on whenever he speaks the way that he speaks or does the things that he does. And what the people of this country have to realize is that a lot of the poor, and it's not a race thing, but a lot of the poor white people supported this guy. And what we have to understand is that there are more white people and white adults that have to depend on food stamps. And if they're depending on food stamps, they are most definitely depending on the government health care as well in most cases. And so you have more, once again, whites that have to depend on the government, but yet they voted this guy in the office and he's destroying their lives slowly, day by day. And at this point, there's nothing that they can do. But what this, and I'm going to keep calling him a so-called leader or a so-called president, because what he wants is for the people to come on their hands and knees, begging and crying and asking him to do something so that he can exert his power and have more control over the people. That's his whole objective, y'all, is power and control. I heard this informationalist reporter say that no matter whether you like Donald Trump, you have to accept the fact that he is truly wanting to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. And once again, he says what he wants to say to make things sound good and or to look good. But the reality is, the only reason why he wants to end the war in Ukraine, well, there's a couple reasons. One is because that's what he campaigned off of. Two is because he wants to make himself look good. It has nothing to do with ending that war. He sits and he claims that he cares about the lives that are being lost between Russia and Ukraine. But yet, your own country is going through a phase of suffering. Yeah, it's not as bad as the war. I agree with that. But we have hardworking people that are not able to pay their bills or feed their family because of the decisions that are being made in that White House. But yet, you're worried about what's going on in another country as opposed to focusing on the problems that you have in your own country. Y'all, it's downright ridiculous what's going on right now. It truly is.